good morning and welcome to Whenever You Are. I am Bandit Haze, and today we're going to be talking about some of our least favorite things, some of our worst favorite things, and I do have a guest to join me. He goes by the name of PopeyJN. He's a YouTuber on YouTube, which is of course where you find YouTubers. He does gaming videos. He does a podcast as well. I'm gonna have a link in the description to all his stuff, so make sure you check that out once you get a chance to after this video, of course, because you know I need the views too. Yeah, definitely check out his stuff after this. But yeah, we're gonna talk about some favorite things. So, Mr. PopeyJN, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm not too bad. How are you, sir?
I am excellent. So we are talking from literally across the world. I mean, in the UK, I don't know if you know this, but we refer to Australia as down under. I guess over in Australia, you refer to the UK as up above. I don't know how it works over there.
We usually just refer to them as our weird cousins that we've gotten away from.
Yeah, that's probably about right, actually. Probably about right. We are pretty awkward up here. I've never been to Australia though, but a few people who I know who went. You know, my mum actually went last year. She said it was great over there. A few people I know went say it's great over there, really sunny. And of course, you know, we watched Neighbours and Home and Away and those shows that paint a really good picture of it as well. So, before you get into this, real quick, for anybody watching who's never been to Australia but has watched Neighbours, is Australia anything like that?
Well, obviously, with Neighbours and stuff like that, it's a little less dramatic, a little less people dying in fires every couple of weeks. But I think for most of the stuff with the business side of everything, when you're watching this show, there's a lot of people going in and out of business and work and everything and school and all that stuff. So I think for a lot of that stuff, it's very accurate. But for the rest of it, it's all very dramatized.
So as far as soap operas go, it's a fairly accurate soap opera. It's not too ridiculous then. Okay.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
All right, cool. All right, so with like favorite games or just favorite anything really, what would you say would be your most standout piece of art in 2016?
2016. I don't know. I've gotten the chance to play such a kind of wide variety of stuff this year, which is really cool. It's been a lot more exciting, I think, this year compared to previous years, because you have a lot more drive in the gaming community to better. Companies are trying to better themselves all the time, and a lot with the stuff this year. There's a lot more color coming back in the games. I think for like last year and 2014 as well, there was kind of a drab period where color didn't seem to be a majority focus in games. It seemed to have fizzled out, but in stuff like I've loved this year, Firewatch is probably the best example I could give for that stuff. That was a really interesting game to play, and a lot of really cool colors coming back into the game.
Okay. Interesting about Firewatch. I mean, I haven't played it, but I remember when it came out, or around about when it came out, there was a lot of talk about Firewatch, and it got some very interesting responses as to being about 2 hours long, I believe, and not really being a game. And what was your sort of take on that sort of thing?
It was. I felt it as more of an exploration into the kind of psyche of having somebody kind of watching you from a distance. So it was more about setting that mood and creating some realism in the atmosphere and kind of trying to crawl under the player's skin and kind of create that really creepy atmosphere that someone's kind of lurking around watching you, and there isn't a lot that you can kind of do. And at the same time, you're trying to unravel this kind of mystery of what's happened previously at the lookout tower. So it was really interesting.
Okay. So what would you say then is your worst game of the year or worst thing of the year in terms of what stands out as the worst for you?
The
worst. There's a lot to choose from, I'm sure.
Yeah. There was a couple this year. I mean, there was this game that came out, this little kind of indie game that came out called I don't know if you've heard of it, Slashy Souls.
You heard of that one? I don't believe I have, actually.
So basically, it was a company that was trying to jump onto the bandwagon of Dark Souls and make a very kind of arcade-style 2D Dark Souls in a way, and it just kind of fell flat. The graphics were horrendous for what the game what they were charging for the game. At least I think it was like $15-20. So it was insane for what the price was, and the gameplay was very jolty as well. But that wasn't too bad. There was also stuff like, you know, No Man's Sky, which although it was like visually spectacular, there was just a lot of stuff that wasn't in the game that we were promised. So I think for me, No Man's Sky was pretty bad, but Slashy Souls was one of the ones that I kind of really picked up on for this year.
Did you play No Man's Sky?
I think I did like 2 episodes on the channel. I was interested because there was a lot of press that was going on for it. Obviously, a lot of people talking about different aspects of the game, and I got in, and like it's one of those games I feel where it's fun for an hour. You know, playing an episode for an hour, like recording on YouTube, I play for an hour and then kind of edit down. That's always what I've done. But after an hour, you kind of do start getting bored because there isn't a lot to kind of do. You're just getting resources and then flying to a different planet and getting more resources. So there wasn't a lot of gameplay to it.
So you were amongst the people then that pretty much abandoned it within the first couple of weeks. Was it 90? Was it? I can't remember what it was. Like 80, 90% people abandoned it. In the first couple of weeks. I guess you were one of those people.
Well, it wasn't a lot of that. Like, it was a lot more. I always think, like, I've always kind of prided words. I've always kind of taken pride in the content that I do create and put out for my audience. And I feel like with a game like No Man's Sky, it's for 1 or 2 episodes, I think you're good. But anything past that, I think it kind of gets a little bit repetitive. And for me particularly, I have a really strong kind of connection with my audience. I talk to them every single day in the comments. So I feel like they deserve a bit more than just watching the exact same thing, even though you're doing different commentary. But ultimately, they're sitting there just watching the exact same thing over and over again. And I don't think it's fair for them.
Okay. Have you tried to go back to it, by the way, since the updates?
I have gone back to it. Not on YouTube. I have gone back in my own kind of spare time.
Sure.
But again, it's still there's still not a lot to it. Even with the updates, there's a couple of cool like little new things that they've added. A couple more creatures and a couple more stations up in the space kind of sky area. But apart from that, it's still basically the exact same game. So I've played it a couple of times, but I'm still kind of just abandoned it now.
Yeah, I think No Man's Sky for me was probably the most disappointing game that I never played, just because I was interested in the whole idea. I'm not typically into exploration games as a general thing. They don't usually do it for me, but I was really interested in the whole thing, hype around it. Everyone was talking about it. Sean Murray was going all over the world talking about it. So I was like, man, this is something to pay attention to. But then it came out, and then a few people played it and were like, wait a minute, what's this? What's going on? Where's this? Where's that? Why can't I do this? So you promised this, and I was like, what's going on? Then you hear about how many people abandoned it, and now like you said, there's not really a whole lot to do in the game. And there was still, there's a few people who still said it was good and they still enjoyed it, but a lot of people were like, yeah, nah. And then the updates came, and it seems to, at least from what I can gather, it seems to fix some of the issues and present give some of the things that they promised initially, but it's still a lot that you can't do that you're supposed to be able to do, and that's a real shame. That's a real shame, because I was like, damn, I might have to wait till this game's dirt cheap or something. But then again, somebody was telling me the other day that actually it is worth, if you can get it for like £20 or so, I think it said £20-25, then it's worth it for that. So maybe we'll see in the new year. It's a few more games I've got to get through before I could look at that. But I don't think there's any rush for me to get into No Man's Sky right now.
I think it's the same thing for a lot of us. I mean, for a lot of us, I have a couple of mates that are pretty high up on YouTube, and they've said the exact same thing. They've said No Man's Sky is one of those games that we've all said we're circling back to, but there's so much stuff coming out in the next couple of months at least. Like you have a bunch of Telltale stuff coming out. I think in the next 2 weeks you have the next Batman kind of episode, and you have the Walking Dead starting up again. So there's all these kind of big, high-profile games that are starting up again. So unless there is some major change, I don't feel like anyone's going to kind of go back to it. I think it's going to be one of those games that people kind of put on the shelf, and they're just like, yeah, we'll go back to that eventually.
Yeah, hopefully for them next year there'll be some kind of once they do have everything they need, there'll be some kind of resurgence of it, and they might finally get the love that it should have got, back when it came out.
I think it's the same feeling that people have had to stuff this year in movies like Suicide Squad. I think it's from the trailer and everything, you're promised all this kind of really cool stuff, and then it's the same thing for Suicide Squad. I think it kind of just fell flat.
By the way, just as you mentioned Suicide Squad, just for people watching this, because I do talk about movies as well. I do actually plan on talking about Suicide Squad because there's a few things I've got to say about that movie. I've watched it in the cinema, but I do plan on talking about that because as you mentioned it, it's like I watched it and I saw that lots of critics in particular were like, I hate it, and I watched it. I was like, it's not a perfect movie certainly, and you can certainly see where maybe they could have. Maybe they've done things a little bit different. That might work a little bit better. And some things just some of the jokes especially just fell flat. But I felt like it didn't deserve that much hate. So, but then I watched I Hate Everything's video on it. And he made a few interesting points about it. So I'm gonna have to watch that film again and be like, okay, let's see what's going on here. And
at the end of the day, I think it's one of those films where you might watch it once or twice, but it's one of those films that you're not going to be kind of reaching for when you're bored on a night and have nothing to watch. You're not going to be like, well, you know what, Suicide Squad, why not? It's going to be one of those movies that kind of just pops into your head every now and then. You're just like, it was an alright time.
Would you say Suicide Squad then was your worst movie of the year?
I honestly, I don't know. There's Again, I watch a lot of indie films and stuff as well. So, okay. But with indie films, you're kind of buying into, it's not a high production and all that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
So it's not always going to be, Shakespeare. But in terms of high budget, I don't know if Suicide Squad was for me the worst, but it was kind of up there just because of all the stuff it was kind of promising and then didn't deliver on.
Did you watch Captain America: Civil War?
No, this is the thing that always gets me in trouble with my subscribers is that I've always said that I kind of haven't seen the point of the Avengers, and I'm not really into the Avengers that much. Okay, like I'm into Spider-Man, I'm into Batman and all that stuff, but I never really got into the Avengers or Wolverine and all that stuff.
But here's the thing, Captain America: Civil War, this is the correct answer. If somebody asks you what's like the best comic book movie this year, the correct answer is always going to be Captain America: Civil War. That movie is awesome.
Yeah,
that movie is awesome.
I had someone the other day trying to convince me that Batman vs Superman was the best movie this year. I was just like, I saw half of that movie and I fell asleep.
Wrong answer. Captain America: Civil War. It's a good film. It's a good film. I really enjoyed it. I'll say that's probably as far as big budget movies goes, I'll say Captain America: Civil War is probably my favorite movie of the year. Just because, I'm into the whole Marvel stuff anyway.
You must be excited for Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yes, definitely. And not so much.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, not so much because of the trailer. I felt the trailer was kind of bland. It was okay, but I'm excited for that film just anyway, just because one, Spider-Man is my favorite comic book character. So there's that.
Yeah, same.
When it introduced him in Civil War, they did it in such an awesome way, and just the idea that, granted, it's not back with Marvel, but Marvel are playing a big hand in the creative process, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And Iron Man's in it, you know what I mean? So
yes.
Yeah, I'm quite excited for Spider-Man. That's due out like summer next year. But yeah, just real quick before we finish, then just to mention what I'd say is my most disappointing game of the year. And the thing about this game, it's not that it's a terrible game. In fact, it really isn't. It's actually a pretty damn good game. It's just that there's a glitch in it, which means that you can't complete the game. You know, you get to the second boss, and then you fight the boss. And it's a hard boss as well, so you get your ass kicked, and then eventually, after retries, the boss just walks off the screen, and then doesn't come back. It's like, what the hell? And that's Mother Russia Bleeds. And it's an indie game. And the reason why this game was so disappointing to me, because it's published by Devolver Digital. And you might, if you've played, you know, Hotline Miami 2, Not a Hero. They've published a lot. They're not developers. I think they help developers as well, but mostly publishers. But anyway, they've published a lot of my favorite games over the last sort of year or so. So when I saw they were doing this and it was coming out, when I saw Devolver Digital, I was like, yep, I want this game just based on that. And I got it, and then there's a glitch, and I was like, really? Really? So yeah, that was quite disappointing thing for me. So hopefully that's something that gets fixed. As far as I'm aware, right now it's still a glitch in the game, but it's just really disappointing because it's a good game. But when things like that happen,
but I think that's again, I think it's kind of like when you're buying into the indie film business. You know, there's going to be, you know, it's not going to be probably well polished as it could be, and I think that's kind of the fun of doing, especially on YouTube. It's finding little indie games that no one's heard of and just giving them a shot, because I feel like it's a lot more fun. I mean, the big releases, the AAA kind of releases are fun, but it's so much more fun to support, you know, an unknown person. It's so much fun to support a game that's not been heard of or doesn't get as much attention in the media. And, you know, there are some games where there is glitches and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, I find it a lot more fun to find all that kind of stuff and kind of turning that into some kind of comedy during your video. So I find that a lot more fun than really high polished games sometimes.
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. I mean, what everybody knows about, you know, the big releases of AAA games, you know, they don't. Well, it's not that you should never play them. Of course, you should. They're big for a reason. But yeah, as you said, sometimes it's just cool to find something, even if it's an older game that came out maybe 5 years ago that hardly anybody's heard of, and just to play it, see what it's like, or just a web-based game that maybe you doesn't fall into the category of things that you might typically play, but just to give it a go and try it out, make a video of it, hopefully make it, you know, funny and interesting as well. Yeah, no, definitely. That's something that I've done a few times on my channel, something that I want to do more of as well. And yeah, so you do a few of those as well. So yeah, definitely. And I absolutely agree with that.
It's still an interesting thing, especially with the indie thing, because you do occasionally come across gems like Presentable Liberty or The Beginner's Guide and all that kind of stuff. Those games, when you find those games that are very well made but also have a really kind of compelling story, that's what really fascinates me a lot more in terms of the indie kind of stuff compared to the larger scale game releases, because I find that stuff a lot more, especially with the indie industry. And you have like, I think it's like Game Jolt, and you have Itch, which is another site where they have indie games and everything. There's so much more freedom for complex storytelling than you would get in in a larger scale game, which is really fascinating, especially this year and last year with some of the releases. So
yeah, definitely a lot more experimenting in the indie side of things. All right, so yeah, I think that's a good place to end the video. PopeyJN, thank you very much for joining me on today to talk about some of the highlights and lowlights of the year. Definitely check out Popey's channel. Sorry, what was that?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Just talking at the same time. Skype, man, Skype. You're welcome. But yeah, check out Popey's channel. All the links in the description. Guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what your favorite games of the year, your favorite moves of the year, your worst games of the year, your worst moves of the year. Let me know what you think. If you agree with anything we said, if you disagree with anything we said, you have something completely different, let me know. And if you like this video, give it a like and share it amongst your friends. If you did not like it, then give it a dislike and share it amongst your enemies. Either way, let me know your reasons in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and until whenever, if ever, PopeyJN, do you have any final words to end us on?
Just thank you for having me, and to all of my people that are watching, make sure you subscribe to Bandit as well.
Awesome. Peace out, guys.